If they succeed, either by damaging him or staining him such that he is either unable or for legal or political reasons to run again, they might end up finding out that they've done the Republican Party a great service, because I think a great many Republicans think they can't win with Trump at the head of the ticket again. They're afraid of his supporters and don't want to come out against him directly, but they'd like him to go away. If the effect of this committee is to make his possible candidacy go away, I think a great many Republicans would privately be very glad.
They certainly can't say it publicly. That's Fox News political analyst Brit Hume about the January 6th hearings. He warns Democrats could succeed where all Republicans have failed in knocking off President Trump from the pedestal in the Republican Party that he occupies. Tonight, Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace faces a tough primary challenge from Trump-endorsed Katie Arrington. Last month, President Trump's hand-selected candidates lost in Georgia as voters there roundly rejected relitigating 2020. Chris Steyerwalt is here, NewsNation political editor. Is there something to what Brit Hume was saying? Republicans may not wish Trump ill, they just wish him gone?
Look, yes, I think what is happening in these hearings is probably quite helpful to Republicans in the long run. Obviously, Kevin McCarthy and House Republicans don't think so because it's not helpful for them, they think, in the short run. That's why they tried to stop it. But I think in the long run for Republicans, look, the idea that Donald Trump will be prevented from running for president is wishful thinking for Republicans. I don't think that's how this story probably goes. I mean, you never know. But I think the reality is that Republicans are going to have to dispatch Donald Trump, or they'll end up like the Democrats did in the previous century and before with William Jennings Bryan, whom they nominated 3 times to increasingly bad results. Republicans are afraid of Donald Trump supporters. That is true. But the only way out is through. And what I suspect is happening as a result of these hearings, which many Republicans say, you know, shut up, who cares, it doesn't matter. It is building this case to remind Republicans of what a liability Trump would be and what it would mean to their party to go through it again, because the Team Normal, as they call themselves, was not in the building at the end with Trump and wouldn't be with him if they started up again.
So far, and you pointed out when it happened, that voters in Georgia really rejected the 2 relitigate 2020, big lie, Trump-endorsed statewide candidates. They did so roundly. Tonight, there is yet another test of that. Nancy Mace in South Carolina, Tom Rice in South Carolina as well. And then you've got the Adam Laxalt, Trump-endorsed in the Nevada Senate race against Sam Brown, who's injured combat veteran. How does this play out for the general election, in that if Mr. Trump's candidates and the big lie candidates keep getting waxed, does that really continue to minimize his power with every primary?
Well, you can, as a lawyer would say, I can preach it round or I can preach it flat. You could tell a story about Donald Trump's great successes in midterm primaries. Look at J.D. Vance. Look at other races where a candidate he endorsed picked. Or you could tell the story about him shoving all his chips in on Georgia, getting his bluff called and getting beat real bad. I think what you have tonight in South Carolina, House districts are different. People feel different. There are different dynamics there than there are in a statewide race. Nancy Mace has tried to have it both ways. She is like one of her political benefactors, the former governor of South Carolina, and Trump's former ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, where it's looking for that Goldilocks position on Trump, versus Tom Rice, who voted to impeach Trump. He's Rice is much more conservative than Trump or Nancy Mace or whomever, but he just doesn't care. And I think I would just say, if you're a politician, the way you might as well do what you want to do, because you'll have a hard time predicting what's going to play right with voters. I think Mace is in a little bit of a tight spot, and I sort of hats off to Rice, who's going to do what he wants to do, and people can either return him or not. But these are not seats that Democrats are likely going to go pick up, and so that's what that is. You mentioned Nevada. This is a much more consequential race for November. Adam Laxalt, the son and grandson of U.S. senators, and his dad and grand, it gets confusing, but his dad.
There's some family tree going on out there in Nevada.
There's some. It is a ruffled potato chip, but I will just say he has the name recognition, the pedigree. He is a Washington blue blood. He is elite schools, all of that stuff. and he went in big on Trump.
Yeah.
In Sam Brown, he's facing, and
Hey, Chris,
like a lot of people did. Yes,
I got
sir.
3 seconds. The computer's going to cut me off. We'll keep talking about this tomorrow, probably. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.